This table shows that since July 2019, FedReserve has issued 35% more units. They call them dollars, but they're not dollars anymore. And what does that mean? What does that? How does that impact us? Well, that means one's salary, if it's paid in FedReserve units, must be 35% higher today to stay current. So if you are now making 35% more than you did 4 years ago, you're making less value. That means you can buy less at the store, buy less gasoline. It's the same amount. Seems like the same amount of money, but it isn't, because money can go up and down in value. And so you can buy less at the store consequently. So the data behind this shows that in July 2019, there was 148 trillion Fed Reserve units, otherwise known as dollars. And 4 years later, it was 209. So that's an increase of 61 trillion. You notice here in 2023, they actually had mercy on people and they reduced it a little bit, which is positive. So overall, though, with over the course of 4 years, there was a 35% increase. So that means if we sort of invert that, so as I said, if you increase the quantity of something and demand stays the same, it becomes less valuable, right? It's a glut. It's just like there's suddenly a glut of blueberries. There's only a certain number of people eating blueberries. So the blueberry manufacturers have to lower the price of it. And so money, just like blueberries, has a value on it, because people like, anyway, has a value on it. So what does that mean? So the value of 50K back in 2019 now only buys 30, like in terms of 2019 numbers, it only buys $37,000 worth of goods. I mean, that's horrible. Somebody who's making 50K and living a certain lifestyle now actually can only afford 37K of that, like 35% less. And I'm sort of dealing with broad strokes here, but you get the point. I mean, these are big numbers, 35%. But if it's 28 or it's 37, you get the point. So how does that translate? How does that translate? Like, what do you need to be making to stay current, just to stay even, right? Which is fine. Like, if you're doing the same job you did 4 years ago, I mean, granted, you're more qualified at your job, so you probably deserve a raise, but a real raise. But let's just say you're doing the same exact job. It's like, for someone, you mow their lawn. You've been mowing the lawn for 4 years. You're still mowing the lawn, and which actually relates to like an hourly or something. So back, in order for you to be making the same value, in order for you to be able to buy the same amount of groceries at the store, the same amount of gasoline, the same amount of clothing, you would now need to have a salary, instead of $14 an hour, of $18.90. Let's just call it $19. So that's what you should be making right now, $19. Now, if it's a typical company, maybe they gave you a 3% raise like every year. So that would be maybe you're making 12% more. So if you're not making 35% more, you're making less. You can buy less at the store. You're making less value. So the key thing is value. Like, don't count your money. Value it. What is that? Like, measure the value of it, because it can be deceiving. Like in classic like zombie crazy inflation. Bread is $5, and then the next day it's $100. So if you had $100 one day, the value of it is 20 loaves of bread. The next day it's one loaf of bread. So it's like you still have the $100, but you can only buy one loaf of bread. So you have to value the money. You have to measure the value of the money. So then you have raises. Let's talk about like 50K and 100K salaries. So if you're making 50K in 2019, you now need to be making 67K just to be able to buy the same amount that you did before. That's it. Like, if you're making less than that, you're making less value. And then with 100K, if you're making 100, you need to be making 135 now. I'd like to add that a lot of companies don't do this. They don't give raises that are commensurate with the value of the money. But a lot of them actually sometimes can't. Like, they're not raising their prices to consumers. You just have somebody who sells coffee mugs, and they pay their workers to make the coffee mugs. And if the company selling the mugs has not raised their prices 35% in the compared to 4 years ago, well, then they can't pay their workers 35% more. So let's say a company only raised their prices 10%. Like, oh God, I can't. I'm already raised my prices. It's like, listen, everybody, we're dealing with like I don't know about hyperinflation, but major inflationary situation here. They are just issuing more units hand over fist. I mean, luckily they've slowed it down recently. If that company is not raising their prices aggressively enough, they can't pay their workers. You got to find another company to work for. As I spoke to someone recently, you have to switch companies, because if you're in the same company, they will say, "Hey, we gave you 3% last year. I mean, we'll give you 5% now." It's like, no, we're talking crazy inflation right now. So the only way sometimes you can get what you're worth and stay current is by switching companies. Because why? Because when you well, I don't want to get carried away here, so I'll make another video about that. But anyway, that's the point here. Just to review, there was 148 trillion units 4 years ago. There's 209 units now, an increase of 61. That means a 35% increase. If you increase this is a supply or quantity of something, and demand stays the same, the value of that item goes down, and it has gone down. 50K can only now buy 37K. You need to be earning a lot more money, and so often the only way to do that is to switch jobs, because a company can't give you the raise, won't or can't. To learn more about this, you can visit my website, Monetary Choice, or follow me on Twitter, X, and thanks a lot.